watching Rogers TV.
Hi everyone and welcome to Rogers Television, where we will talk politics today. Yes, we have organized a debate for the riding of Ottawa-Centre. I'm sure this is pretty relevant and for any Canadian actually listening at the moment. We will all be voting on April 28th, at least on the day of the election coming up to us. So we thought at Rogers Television to invite every candidate from the Ottawa-Centre riding. So we sent invitations to every candidate on the ballot. Some of them answered back. They are here today, so I'm acknowledging and welcoming everybody to this debate. First of all, thank you for being here. We have Cashton Perry from the Communist Party of Canada. Thank you very much. We have Yasir Naqvi from the Liberal Party of Canada. Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party. Sorry, I jumped through Andrea Chabot of the Canadian Future Party. I'm sorry, Andrea, I had trouble on my list here. Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party, I'll get that right. And Joel Harden from the New Democratic Party of Canada. Thank you very much for your all presence here. I'm Nicolas Pelletier. I'm a teacher of journalism at Collège de la Cité here in Ottawa. I love talking democracy. I love talking politics. I think this is the moment to do it, of course. This can be also your source of information from every candidate. We will have the chance here to hear them, hear what's different between all of them, and also hear what they have for you, why you should vote for them. So, guys, we will have a format made of opening statements. Every one of you will have 60 seconds to introduce yourself. We will have a format of debate afterwards. I will introduce the questions, and then you will have a short opening statement following up 2 minutes of debate, and then every person I ask the question to will have the chance to have the last word on these questions. We'll follow, and we'll see about the time, rapid fire questions. I think the objective here is also to have the more topics that we can have and talk together as we are in this electoral period. So thank you very much for your presence here. Let's start with those opening statements, and the order have been decided. This is a total hazard, that's what we say, right? My first language, you guessed it, is not English, but thank you very much for this. It's my turn now. So let's start. Mr. Cashton Perry from the Communist Party of Canada. You have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Cashton Perry. I'm a manufacturing worker and a graduate of Algonquin College's welding program, and I'm the Communist Party candidate in Ottawa-Centre. The capitalist parties, imperialist ruling class, and far-right and fascist movements are driving Canada towards conventional and nuclear war, genocide, and escalating climate change. The Trump regime is hitting Canada with tariffs, threats of annexation, and demands for a vast increase in military spending. The result? Plant closures, mass layoffs, and big cuts to healthcare, social programs, and climate action as the leading parties concede to Trump while pretending to fight back. The Communist Party proposes working-class solutions to the crises we are facing. We need to put the major industries under public ownership and democratic control, including steel, auto manufacturing, energy, the banks, and others. If they will not run to their full capacity under private ownership in the interest of profits, then they will run under public ownership. Only the Communist Party will fight for these policies out of the elections.
Thank you very much. Then we have Yasir Naqvi from the Liberal Party of Canada. 1 minute for your opening statement.
I'm a product of Canada. My family and I came here when I was a boy, fleeing dictatorship in search of freedom. Canada took us in, not with fear, but with hope. Canada gave us a chance, and I have spent my life giving back. I am now fighting to protect my country. This is a really important and consequential election. Donald Trump has attacked Canada, and electing Pierre Poilievre is no different than electing Donald Trump. Same playbook, same politics of division, same slogans and nicknames. We need calm and competent leadership. Mark Carney has the experience to deal with this crisis. As an international trade lawyer, I have relevant experience to serve our community and our country. I will stand up for Canada. We will make Canada strong.
Thank you very much. We can now hear Andrea Chabot from the Canadian Future Party.
Hi. I'm Andrea Chabot, and I'm your Canadian Future Party candidate for Ottawa-Centre. After 15 years in the public service, I've seen firsthand how the outdated systems and endless red tape hold our public servants back from delivering the real services when all they want to do is help you. Solving that problem is my personal mission, but I know it's not the only problem facing our nation. Now, more than ever, we need a bold new vision for Canada. The Canadian Future Party brings a moderate, forward-thinking, and above all, evidence-based approach. Let's bring real accountability back to government. Let's prioritize efficient and secure digital public infrastructure like digital ID, secure ways to transmit data, and along with data sovereignty legislation. And let's make it simpler to do everything from starting a business to getting access to the benefits and credits you deserve. Let's build a government that actually works for all Canadians.
Thank you very much. Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party of Canada.
Thank you. I'm honored to be your candidate for the Green Party of Canada in Ottawa-Centre. Prior to running, I worked as a policy analyst, first in clean technology and then sustainable transportation, because I'm committed to building a more sustainable future for Canada. I'm running because I do not believe that the Liberals have done enough to deliver on our community's priorities, which are better public transit, more affordable homes, and access to primary care. But I know there's a lot facing our country right now and that this election is a critical one. As Green MPs, we are ready to work across party lines to defend Canadian sovereignty and to build a green economy, all while putting the well-being of people and the planet at the center of everything that we do. Today, I will put forward our party's vision for a more resilient, more sustainable, and fairer Canada. You can read more about my plans for Ottawa-Centre on my website, rosenstock4oc.ca.
Joel Harden from the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, and thanks, friends at Rogers, for hosting this debate. We all know this is not a normal election. This is perhaps the strangest election I've seen in my entire life living in this country. But I also know Canadians are strong, and it's been an honor to visit you at your doorstep and to hear your anxiety and your concerns. And I want you to know Ottawa-Centre can elect an MP that will go to the House of Commons and fight for you. You've done it before, in Ed Broadbent and Paul Dewar. Those were two members of Parliament that helped Prime Ministers Mulroney, Martin, and Harper realize what downtown Ottawa wants. We want a fighter. We want somebody who's going to make sure that we invest in our public transit systems, that we build actually affordable housing, that every single person in our community is allowed to be their best self. We have great community solutions for all of these things, but it takes an MP who is devoted to bringing those to the House of Commons. I want to be that for you. And I can't wait for our discussion this afternoon.
Thank you to all of you for these opening statements. This puts the table now to our next topic. So I will be asking some questions. Everybody, when I ask the question to you, you have 45 seconds to just set the thing. What is your vision of this certain topic? What is the vision of your party? Let's say you're at home, you're listening to you. How do you make yourself different from every other proposition? What is the thing that we can, you can promise to the people that when you are talking now, your campaigns have started. So after that, I want to hear you debate over these things. I think this is the place to do it. And the person that I asked the question to will have 30 seconds to have the last word on this question. And we will do this for every one of our candidates here today. So I will start this. I remember it was Mr. Cashton Perry who will start from the Communist Party of Canada. What does, you have all started your campaigns now, what does the people tell you here in Ottawa-Centre when you see them? What is their priority and how are you responding to them? Let's start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems that people are having in Ottawa-Centre that always comes up is the absolutely unaffordable state of housing. And we understand the problem of the housing situation as being rooted in the commodification of housing, it being seen as a tool for speculation, for profit, and we think that needs to be entirely gotten rid of. We want to build 1 million new units of publicly owned housing, and it needs to be rent geared to income so that it won't be hugely inflated by inflation and being used for speculation when people need to live in these houses, not be speculating on them.
Let's talk housing. Who wants to talk back on this? Mr. Harden.
Well, I think we need to realize what's happened. We're halfway through a 10-year housing plan by the federal government. And how much affordable housing have we built? Truly affordable. My definition of that is the definition we've had since the post-war, 30% of one's disposable income. A pittance is the answer. We've had great discussion. We've had leadership from Ottawa Community Housing with their Arif properties, leadership from Centretown Citizens Ottawa Corporation, local leadership. But the federal government has been great on verbiage and press conferences. But by and large, their definition of affordable housing, 80% of market rent, that will not help most people get an affordable home, and we have to demand better.
Amanda Rosenstock.
Absolutely. So I agree with Mr. Harden that the Liberals have not done enough to make progress on this issue. Under the Housing Accelerator Fund, 4,400 units are promised by 2027. About 7% of those have been committed to so far, not built. The City of Ottawa's official plan recognizes that missing middle housing, so the type of housing between single detached homes and large apartment buildings, is the solution to giving renters and first-time homebuyers more options that can accommodate their needs. I support this approach so that young professionals don't have to flock to the suburbs when they're looking to upsize. As your MP, I would work more aggressively with the city to lift zoning restrictions that prevent larger unit sizes in multi-unit residential from being built, and I would also work to speed up changes to the federal building code to allow for larger unit sizes and more energy-efficient homes.
Thank you. Mr. Naqvi on this.
Ottawa-Centre is unique. We've got lots of federal lands in Ottawa-Centre, and we need to make sure that we building more housing. And we need to build on the success that we had over the last 4 years since I've been serving as your member of parliament. We have invested over $1 billion in Ottawa-Centre to build housing. There's over 3,000 homes being built right now. And we're talking about housing for everyone, young people, working families, and people who need affordable housing. There's more to do, and I'll continue on that progress.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds to close this topic, Mr. Perry.
Thank you. Only a working class party looking out for the working class can provide the necessary solutions to solve this housing crisis. We need rent rollbacks to 20% of people's income and a rent freeze, not only rent controls, not only affordable market housing, but real affordable rent geared to income housing that will be publicly owned and not for profit.
Thank you very much to all of you. You now understand the format good, so we will talk about the same thing, but with different topic now, same format. Mr. Yasir Naqvi will have now the chance to talk to us about the economy. I think we need, this is the topic of the moment. It could be international, it could be very local as well. So on the economy, what do you say to the electors here in Ottawa-Centre?
The economy is the number one issue, as I think all of us are experiencing as we're knocking on doors. People are telling me that they are really fearful as to what is happening in the global economy. We're seeing the chaos every single day, the kind of assault that Donald Trump has launched on us. And that is why this is so important that we rebuild our Canadian economy. We rebuild it in a way that is less reliant on the United States, that is actually creating good paying jobs by connecting our country east to west by building one economy as opposed to 13, and building new relationships with our partners in European countries and the Pacific Rim. And that's why our east and west ports become so important. And that will have a direct impact on our local economy here in Ottawa-Centre.
It's now open to debate on the economy.
Yes,
Chabot.
we need tax reform badly, procurement reform to get out of the way of the public servants that are trying to deliver, and a social program overhaul. Above all those things, there's economic benefits to implementing a digital ID that both the private sector and the public sector can benefit from to make things more efficient to deliver, and including data sharing platforms across the country. That's the real infrastructure we need.
Mr. Perry.
Yes, when capitalist parties talk about the economy, a lot of the time they don't understand it as what working class prosperity. They understand it as increased profits, increased revenues, which come at the cost of working class wages and prices. So we see huge profits in the past 5 years by these corporate monopolies, and some see this as something to be lauded, but we understand it as a theft from the working class by the corporate elite. And we need to revitalize the economy by building public manufacturing, putting major manufacturing under public ownership and democratic control so that it can be used for the benefit of the working class of Canada.
Amanda Rosenstock?
Thank you. Greens have understood for a long time that the rip and strip economy that puts us at an economic disadvantage relative to our global peers is not the way forward. Value-added processing generates significantly more tax revenue and economic activity than raw resource extraction alone. Sweden, for example, exports forest products primarily as finished furniture, and they extract 5 times more economic value per tree than Canada's raw log exports. And processing resources domestically will create thousands of high-quality Canadian jobs across multiple sectors and regions.
I will give the last words for Mr. Naqvi on the question of economy, and don't hesitate also to have, we're out of time for this one. 2 minutes goes fast, so don't hesitate to also...
I'm comfortable sharing some of my time with my colleague so that he has an opportunity
Of course,
to say
yes.
something.
Well, I think we will have other chances. I think it's also a good way, like I tell my students sometimes, if there are no consequences, we don't make any actions differently, right? So maybe try to, react to the sayings of your, and I'm not only saying this for you, Mr. Harden, don't worry.
I'm not shy.
Okay, perfect. 30 seconds for you, Mr. Naqvi, on the economy in general.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. And as I said, I mean, this is a moment in time that we have to really seize. It's a moment that we need to really focus on rebuilding our economy in all its contexts and making it less reliant. But that also means the work that needs to happen to rebuild our local economy here. And that's why, as your member of parliament, I've been so focused on revitalizing our downtown core, because a lot of our small businesses in the downtown core have been hurting. We need to find ways to bring more people to live, work, and visit in the downtown core, and that work I look forward to continue doing.
Thank you, Mr. Naqvi, for this. So economy is vast, right? You were just talking about local economy, and I want to talk about also the inflation. What is your party's position and your position as a candidate for the people of Ottawa-Centre? This will now a question that I will ask for Andrea Chabot from the Canadian Future Party. You have 45 seconds to set the table on this matter.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an economist, but I do know that inflation post-pandemic has been a problem globally, and it hasn't been necessarily as bad in Canada as other places. So we fared fairly. But what I do know is that it's a complex problem. We need economic experts, and as a party focused on evidence-based decision making, my personal expertise is in tax. Some of what we'd like to see is some help for Canadians, and so revamped social programs. Right now there's multiple, and a lot of them share the same outcomes. We need to streamline those and make smarter decisions at the top to implement in a quicker fashion.
Question is now open for debate. Maybe Mr. Rosenstock, Mr. Harden afterwards.
All right, well, the Liberals and the Conservatives' proposed tax cuts for the so-called middle class will only save Canadians a few months of groceries at best. The Green Party understands, based on Statistics Canada's recent report, that income inequality in Canada has reached its highest levels ever. And that is why we are proposing transformative tax reform to eliminate federal income tax on all earners earning under $40,000. Our plan will particularly help renters who spend a greater percentage of their income on housing compared to homeowners, and will return $50 billion directly to working Canadians, benefiting our local businesses as their customers regain economic capacity.
Mr. Harden.
So we have a strong economy in this country, and I think it's important to recognize that when we talk about inflation. 80% of the things we build in Canada are used in Canada. The problem is, and what leads to inflation, over 40 years, we have put 75% of our exports in one basket. That has been a catastrophic decision New Democrats from Ed Broadbent to today has said was a terrible decision and would lead to consequences for people's cost of living. What do New Democrats believe in? Building an economy in Canada that will reduce the cost of living, fighting for dental care, pushing the Liberals to deliver on that promise, pushing the Liberals to deliver on pharmacare, pushing the Liberals to bring over clean hydroelectricity from Quebec so we can reduce costs for business and for people. If you elect a New Democrat, we will fight against inflation by using policies that'll work.
And Mr. Perry and then Mr. Naqvi.
Yes, the main cause of this inflation has been the absolute monopolization of the major living expenses, from groceries to housing. And we think we need to put forward a price control on essentials, including rent, food, and fuel. Thank you.
A couple seconds for you, Mr. Naqvi. That's fine. Perfect. I'll give you the last words here, Madam.
I'll tell you this is not the time to be buying your votes with tax reductions in income tax. It's time for some real solutions here. I agree with my colleague where we need to start adding more value and get out of the way of the companies that want to do that and are ready to do that. Provide some really key infrastructure funding for those big ticket items, those big cost items that are out of reach for even our biggest corporations in Canada, and unleash the power of the public service.
Speaking of the public service, this will be the next topic. It's now Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party who will start with this question. I think it has also ramification in lots of our realities here in Ottawa-Centre. So how do you see what could be done with the public service, Ms. Rosenstock?
Thank you. Well, we've seen under the Liberals, on the one hand, growing reliance on external consultants, and on the other, commitments to cap the size of the public service. But instead of blanket cuts, why not finally open the door to the possibility of a reduced work week or even a 4-day work week to increase productivity and reduce costs? Iceland's public sector implemented a reduced work week after a successful pilot showed that service provision and productivity either stayed the same or increased without cuts to salaries.
I will open the debate on this question. Mr. Naqvi, let's hear you for first.
Well, public service is extremely important to Ottawa-Centre. We have a lot of public servants who live in our community, work extremely hard. I want to thank them for the incredible service during the pandemic. And I have to say that public service is really important for our local economy. I mean, they support the hair salons, the car dealerships, the restaurants. And that's why I've been very consistent that we need to ensure that our public service remains strong, especially now as we go and rebuild our economy and defend ourselves from the attack from Donald Trump. We need to make sure that we are working with our public service and relying on their expertise to get this important work done.
Mr. Harden, I want to hear you.
It's hard to hear those comments squared against the reality of the fact that in 2023 we had a 3-week strike in the federal public sector where people who were looking for a decent settlement at the bargaining table could not get one from Mr. Naqvi's government. It's also disappointing to see cuts at Immigration Canada at a very time when there's over 1 million people in that backlog, and we need to help those families reunite and deal with immigration case matters. So I like the great mots. I like the great words. But what we need at the bargaining table is respect. People who work for this country that delivered the CERB to people in the pandemic, 9 million Canadians, that didn't happen, except for the amazing service of people who work for our country, and we respect them in the NDP.
Mr. Perry.
There's a deliberate shift going on right now from funding for these public services that we fought for decades for, working class people have fought for decades to maintain. And this is all being slashed to be put into militarism and more military spending to prepare for war against our ruling class's imperialist rivals. We say no to this shift. We want to cut military spending and divert it into the public services that people rely on.
What we actually need is 360 reviews for all our executives, so they're held accountable to the same standards as the rest.
Thank you. We will have other occasions to talk about this public service. I think it's very central in this writing, and I think it's very important to follow through this question. But I will offer for 30 seconds for the closing words on this question to Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party.
Yeah, I absolutely support our public sector unions over their frustrations at the lack of consultation when it came to the return to work directive. But I think what's at the core of this issue is that with hybrid work, we've seen the benefits. We've seen an increase in productivity. We've seen greater well-being, and people want to keep this. And so that's why the Greens are proposing something transformative, a reduced work week that we know will increase productivity and save costs not just for the public service, but for their employees.
Thank you very much. So I think it's good. I think we're getting a momentum here, and I'd like to talk about remote working. I think this has also resonance inside of the public service and the way we live in our our living environment. So I will give you, Joel Harden from the New Democratic Party, the first 45 seconds, and then I will open this question for debate. And it is okay to interrupt. Of course, we want to hear you guys, we want to hear you talking, but if you have different positions and you want, 2 minutes goes very fast, as you can see, and don't worry, we will have other occasions to talk about it. So let's start for you, only 45 seconds to you, Joel Harden.
Well, thank you. I think this is the new reality, and employers know it. In the corporate world, in the government world, small, like we are finding ways to distribute work differently. And what frustrates me with the federal government is their very rigid proposal about mandatory 3 days in the office, because I have talked to people at the doorstep who commute across our city to sit in a decaying building with mold, with mice, while they're having a conversation over Teams or Zooms with an Indigenous community way up north. That is unnecessarily rigid. So we need to use, as my colleague said, the expertise of the public sector, the people who work for this country, and private employers are also showing by example how we can help people help their companies, help their workplaces, and help our country be better without being rigid. It makes no sense.
Oh, Andrea Chabot, I want to hear you.
Thank you. It's clear from even the last question that these folks around the table are out of touch with the realities of what it takes to deliver in the public service. We have consistently underfunded some of the necessary structure that provides the foundation for our front lines of our public service. And the lack of accountability in the executive code has demonstrated this. It's clear that working from home works. We need to hire the best experts from where they are in the country. We are bleeding digital talent right now, and it's going to cost us in the long run.
What do you think about this, Mr. Naqvi?
The reality is that the hybrid work is here to stay. And what we need to make sure that we focus on the output to make sure that our workforce is productive. And for me, what I have been advocating for is that we get to a place where it is customizable to the individual. Some jobs will require somebody to be in the office, but there are many other jobs. It is up to the person whether they would like to work from the office or from home or have a combination of two. I think that is the important work we need to do, as many other workplaces are trying to do in the private sector as well. But one thing I want to really stress that I will fight against is Pierre Poilievre's proposal to cut 17,000 public servants' jobs per year. That will be devastating to our public service. That will be devastating to the quality public service Canadians deserve and receive from our public service.
Mr. Perry, Mr. Harden after.
Yes, we see as this is a primary example of the unwillingness of our federal government to take into account the desires and the needs of the workers. We see this also, I'd like to use this as a point to talk about the Canadian Union of Postal Workers being sent back to work, which is absolutely disgraceful.
It was.
It's a violation of their right to strike and their right to collectively bargain.
And the longshore workers in Montreal.
Absolutely.
You can't have it both ways. You can't talk about this as a good thing and your government implementing a rigid mandate on the other, Yasir. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you. You can actually, of course, oppose or insist on an argument that is from your adversary or your other candidates. I think you guys represent different views of different matters, so we have now done a full, complete first sequence of debates like that. I'd like to continue on this matter, starting by Joel Harden. I'm going on the other way now. On the environment, Mr. Harden, I'd like to hear you on this question. How do you see this matter in Ottawa-Centre? 45 seconds for you to put the table on this.
What Ottawa-Centre needs is a member of parliament who is devoted to lifting up the environmental solutions that are local, that could work. Public transit. We have had federal, provincial, and municipal governments cutting hours for operating public transit, while the federal government and the provincial government does press conferences about imaginary transit systems that may exist one day. And worse, when the federal government has created the LRT proposal, I had to fight, as did Joanne Chianella from CBC News, your colleague, and others, for 2 years to get a judicial inquiry because of how poorly it was built. So public transit is a critical environmental strategy that we need in this city, but we can't fumble it. We can't promise things that we're not going to deliver, and public transit must be built in the public interest, and on that there will be no compromise.
Thank you very much. I'm opening to the debate, Ms. Rosenstock.
Yes, I support everything that Mr. Harden just said. Transit is an absolute priority for me. I do not own a car. I have no plans to own a car. It's cheaper. It's also better for the environment. And so I am committed to, making progress on this very important issue. But look, more Band-Aid solutions, more paltry funding announcements are not going to solve the critical underinvestment in our public services in Ottawa and across the country. What the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and other advocates have been calling for is a renewed fiscal framework. The province, the federal government, and the municipalities must come to the table to ensure that financing for our essential services is sustainable.
Mr. Naqvi.
So, first of all, in a chaotic world we're living in, not dealing with climate change is going to create more chaos. So we have to make sure that we're putting hard caps on emissions of oil and gas. We are making sure that pollution is not free, that industrial large polluters are paying for their pollutions, and we need to protect our nature, our waterways like the Ottawa River and the Rideau River. But I agree with my colleagues. We need to make sure that we're also doing things locally, like protecting the Central Experimental Farm forever so it's not open for development, making sure that we are restoring our urban tree canopy as we've been doing with community partners like cafes and neighborhoods to plant more trees in our neighborhoods. Those are the kind of real concrete action we need to take, in addition to investing in public transit as we have been doing and I have championed so that people have choices in our community.
Do you agree, Ms. Chabot?
We believe that there is a science, the science says there's a climate crisis. We need to promote nuclear power and small modular reactors, the key to clean energy and sovereignty, and unleash the innovators and get rid of the bureaucracy and how hard it is to get innovative products to market that will solve some of these problems.
The only way to address this solution is to take public ownership of the energy production. Unless we do this, they will continue to lobby against reducing their carbon emissions.
Thank you for finishing your sentence. I will give the closing words on this matter and come back with the environment. I think this is something that you need to talk furthermore about. So just another 30 seconds to give your position on environment in general, Mr. Harden.
So it's disappointing that we have spent the last number of years arguing over a consumer carbon tax that not even the Liberal government wants to defend anymore. Our Conservative friends who haven't even shown up for this debate have made it their mantra to make this their defining issue. So not only have they missed the moment, and my colleagues in government missed the moment, we've missed an opportunity in the last number of years. So let's redouble this moment right now to massively invest in public transit, bring over Quebec's hydroelectricity, and build the green economy of the future. We can do it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harden. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt at the very end. I'm getting excited with this. I think this is an important question as well. So let's continue on this. Should we oppose, and I will give you 30 seconds, 45 seconds actually to start this matter, Ms. Amanda Rosenstock from the Green Party. Should we oppose economy and environment, and how does this take place in Ottawa-Centre in the environment that we live in here?
Absolutely. So when I'm at the doors, I hear from people when it comes to climate change that their priorities are getting more cars off the road, having a viable alternative to move around our city and not have to depend on a personal vehicle. Additionally, we know that the upfront costs of heat pumps and of electric vehicles are still too high, and that there is a lot of consumer doubt with respect to range anxiety. We absolutely need a universal heat pump program, which in fact Mark Carney committed to. He actually said that instead of spending maybe $7 billion on one of the EV manufacturing plants, we should have invested that money into a universal heat pump program. This was before he ran for Prime Minister.
Andrea Chabot for debate.
Yes, I think we need to keep in mind that this is a global issue, and so we need allies across the world to help solve this together. I also want to point out that we have to find the balance, right? Our economy up here in Canada is heavily reliant on our exports on fossil fuels. And so we can't just make that shift overnight and expect our economy not to collapse. So we need to find a balanced way forward. We need to start to invest in those innovations, the green innovations, and start to wean off of our fossil fuels over time. It needs to be a long-term strategy.
One thing that no other party, I think, will bring up is that the military is the largest polluter among our federal programs. And this is extremely important because it's not only the largest polluter in our federal programs, it is a massive proportion of our total pollution and carbon emissions. So we're proposing to cut military funding by 75%. The military is not being used as it is to defend our country's sovereignty. It's being used to exploit other countries through imperialist interests. And we think that we need to shift that towards climate funding that will support
Thank you,
renewable
Mr. Perry.
energy.
Mr. Naqvi?
I think none of us are going to disagree that climate change needs to be fought, and that's why my big focus has been on local solutions as well. Most recently, I visited Carleton University, which is in our riding, which received funding from federal government to change their heating boiler. That meant a boiler from the 60s to something electric based today meant they're taking about 8,000 cars off the road every year. That was a significant investment for the federal government to clean up our campus, and we're doing the same thing with hospitals. Similarly,
What about
I'm really
Quebec
proud of
hydroelectricity?
I'm really also very
What
proud of
about
the
Quebec hydroelectricity, Yasir? Will you
fact of the
commit to
fact
that?
that we have $400 million to electrify our entire bus fleet that we're doing. That is how we're
Thank
going
you.
to clean
Thank
up
you,
the
Mr.
air
Naqvi.
and
Time's
climate
up.
in Ottawa.
Thank you very much. I'll give you the closing words, Ms. Rosenstock, on this question. You have 30 seconds.
Absolutely. A party that is serious about reducing our emissions and building the clean economy would not continue to spend $30 billion in direct and indirect support for the oil and gas sector. As Greens, we would reinvest those funds in building out our mass electrification system powered by domestic sources of renewable energy.
Thank you very much. Let's continue with this. I think we have some important topics to talk about. Also, at the very big level, at the international relations. In fact, we are talking a lot about Canada. This means a lot. There's a special moment right now. I think everybody should at least acknowledge that and think about that when you're answering this next question. So I'm going to send Andrea Chabot on this question. 45 seconds, and I want to hear you guys. What is your party's position and your personal opinion on what it is to be Canadian right now? How should we act towards our neighbors? How should we act also inside of Canada? What changes can that make?
Yeah, I'm an incredibly proud Canadian, born and raised here. And the one thing that I appreciate about this situation is that it's brought Canadians together and really shown that we are ready to fight. We're ready to stand for Canada. And so this is an opportunity for a bold new vision. We need to stop relying on the U.S. for defense, digital infrastructure, and economic policy. With the U.S. veering towards authoritarianism, we really need to strengthen our sovereignty here at home. We need to continue on democratic renewal, and that includes freeing MPs from strict party discipline to vote for their constituents in the House, to have a voice. We need Canadians in the House to have the courage, and our public servants to have the courage to speak freely.
Joel Harden, how do you react to this?
There's a great Canadian that inspires my answer to your question, and his name's John Humphrey. He wrote the UN Charter on Human Rights. And one of the things Mr. Humphrey said very clearly is that we, given our own history and the way in which we've treated Indigenous title bearers of these lands, given that we still have government lawyers in court that are denying people's right to clean water. These are arguments federal government lawyers are making in court. We have an obligation to pursue human rights for everyone here and around the world. And on that issue, so I can name it here, the horrific genocide ongoing in Palestinian communities, the bleeding of this into Lebanon, the bleeding of this into Syria, the federal government has to speak up and tell Prime Minister Netanyahu this has to stop. You can't be silent when it comes to the genocide and the mass slaughter of families in these countries.
Mr. Naqvi.
The attack by Donald Trump on Canada has caused a significant fear in our community. I was just the other day canvassing in one of the neighborhoods, talking to a couple. The man was close to my age, and he started crying. We had to hug each other to console each other in terms of the anxiety that people are feeling. But we also came to an understanding that this is an opportunity for us. I'm an international trade lawyer by profession. That's what I did before getting into public service. So I have direct experience in standing up for Canada and making sure that we're building new alliances, new relationships around the world that will be in the best interest of Canadians, creating good local jobs here. That is the hard work we need to do, and we have to do it with confidence because we are resilient people and we can get through this united.
Mr. Perry?
The only way to defend Canadian sovereignty is to realize that as a oppressor nation of multiple different nations, including Indigenous nations, including Quebec, and including our imperialist, the countries that we subject to imperialist extraction in Africa, in the Middle East, we need to find this working class internationalism and stand in solidarity with the peoples of Palestine and Sudan and Yemen. Thank you.
closing words for the 30
We
seconds.
have a major opportunity here to be a global leader among democracies, independent and influential across this beautiful globe. I disagree with the ideas that have been thrown around here to reduce the spending in our military. The Canadian Future Party is committed to increasing that to at least 2.25% of our GDP, and as much as possible over time. We really need to shore up our armed forces to be ready for whatever comes. We need to cancel our future
Thank you very
F-35
much.
orders.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll continue on the debating action. I think this is important also. I will ask now Yasir Naqvi, and I want to hear you all, and I will start to just try to give everybody a chance to come and join in the debate. Does this question, the question we're talking now, and especially our relationship with our southern neighbors and all of that, should this be the question of this election? Is it the question that the people will ask themselves? I want to hear you on this. 45 seconds for Yasir Naqvi.
It is the question, and it is a very important question because remember, we won't be able to change our geography. We live next to the United States, and we'll always live next to the United States, and we have enjoyed tremendous amount of prosperity by having very close relationship. In fact, to this day, the people-to-people relationship are still strong. Every single Canadian probably have a friend or a family member who's an American. But it's also, I think, a realization that this relationship has structurally changed. Number one, the trust is broken. And we really need to seize this moment to make sure that we do lessen our reliance on the United States, that we do build one Canadian economy as opposed to 13 economies, that we do create a deeper relationship with other countries in European Union, Japan, and South Korea.
Thank you.
And that's the work
Ms.
needs to start
Rosenstock on
happening
this
right
matter.
now.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a shame that it took the situation with the U.S. to make us realize that we needed to get serious about removing interprovincial trade barriers. We should have had the foresight and been more proactive on this front. But the question of, in terms of is the situation with the trade war in the United States the dominant issue in this election? My experience has been that it really depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to Canadians who own their homes, who have their nest egg, that are fairly comfortable, yes, absolutely, they have the time and the energy to be really focused on this issue. If you're talking to younger voters, students, young professionals that are really worried about bread and butter, cost of living, everyday issues, what they will consistently tell me is that the cost of housing is too high. Why can't the public transit system get me to where I need to go on time? Those are the key issues for that demographic.
Mr. Harden?
Yeah, I would invite us to not think of these things as either ors. They're both. So Trump has now made us, as he always does, because he loves to bring attention to himself, he's made us realize how terrible it was to put 75% of our exports in one basket. He's realized how cruel he can be, not just with us as a country and our sovereignty writ large, but with us as an economy. And that hits everybody. That bleeds into the cost of living. So again, it forces us as a country to ask ourselves, if millions of Canadians right now are boycotting American goods, if millions of Canadians are taking action themselves, absent a real plan from the federal government, why is it that we as a nation continue to be silent when human rights abusers in Russia, in Israel, in Saudi Arabia are continuing to do the same thing, but when people talk about boycotting projects from those countries, it's a problem for the federal government. Why the double
The
standard?
only way to defend Canadian sovereignty, not just boycotting these products, but actually nationalizing, putting into public ownership the American companies that are exploiting Canadian workers. Thank you. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll give the closing statement on this matter. 30 seconds to Mr. Naqvi.
This is the dominant issue. It's unfortunate that we are finding this to be the dominant issue because I agree there are many other issues around affordability, housing, and climate change and healthcare that we also need to focus on. But first and foremost, we need to make sure that as a confident, sovereign country, we ensure that politically we always will remain independent and that economically we're going to be strong as well. And that is the important work that the next government needs to do. And I look forward to doing that work on your behalf.
Thank you very much. So the last part of this debate, the last question that we will use this format on, I will give 45 seconds for you, Mr. Perry, for the Communist Party of Canada, to talk about health. It's not necessarily only for a federal prerogative, but it's still important. What is your vision on the matter? And I can include also social services into that. Mr. Perry, you have 45 seconds, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that health, education, all these public services are being massively defunded and privatized. Liberals, conservatives are completely on the same page here. We need to enforce the Canada Health Act and reverse the privatizations that have been taking place provincially. And we need to also expand healthcare to cover the entirety of our bodies, vision care, dental care, mental health care. All forms of healthcare need to be covered fully, publicly, without any profit incentive. This is the only way to guarantee affordable and universal health care for all Canadians.
On health, I want to hear Ms. Chabot.
Yeah, in terms of the leadership on that file, we know it's provincially administered, and we just send money to the provinces to do with as they will. I think we need to take a leadership approach and build some key foundational digital public infrastructure that can be reused across provinces and in municipalities and in those hospitals where right now it's very paper-based. And so I think that if we could do that, we'd provide some leadership and we would decrease the cost of administration dramatically.
Ms. Rosenstock after Mr.
You know, Cashton actually makes a very good point about the need to modernize our federal health legislations, which provides the overarching principles for our universal healthcare system. Greens are very much committed to expanding coverage under that system. Right now, the Liberals actually have in place a program that eliminates federal student loans for doctors and nurses, but it only applies in populations of 30,000 people or less. As your MP, I would work hard to push for changes to that program so that eligibility can be based on local needs. As we know, the provider-to-patient ratio in Ottawa is far too low.
Mr. Harden?
What I would say is action from the federal government is critical in healthcare standards. We may not be administering the system, but we set the standards through the Canada Health Act to make sure that they're followed. What we are seeing is rampant privatization of the system, and I'm disappointed, to be honest, with my friend from the Liberals that he voted against a motion that called on the federal government to close loopholes that allow for the growth of two-tier healthcare in Canada on March 6, 2023. That is not the representation that people in Ottawa-Centre want. They want their MP standing up, voting in favor of our single public health system and expanding it.
Because you've been personally challenged, I want to hear you, Mr. Naqvi, and I can add 10 seconds to that.
Yeah, and I want to first of all say that I think the Ontario government, the provincial government, has really failed Ottawa when it comes to healthcare. We've seen the reduction in healthcare spending. The number of people I meet right now who do not have access to a family doctor, nurse is heartbreaking. And that's why I was really proud, in fact, to work with the NDP to make sure that we have a national dental care plan. And I want to make sure that it grows to cover people from 18 to 64 years old, or that we have a farmer care plan. That's something that I championed when I was a member of provincial parliament. These services are important. That's going to make sure that people have good health care.
Why did you vote against the motion, Yasir? Why did you vote against the motion?
Okay, thank you very much. You will have also all of your chance to have your personal thoughts. You can make echo to any of the debates we've had today, but I will give 30 seconds to conclude on this question of health and social services to Mr. Perry.
Yes. The public services are being completely defunded in order to pay for increased military spending, which is not designed to defend Canadian sovereignty. It will not defend Canadian sovereignty against the United States. If anything, it will support the United States in its imperialist endeavors, not only in Canada, but across the world, in Palestine, in the rest of the Middle East, in Africa. We need to reduce military spending and put that into working class programs like healthcare.
Thank you very much. So this concludes our debate zone. We're going to go with rapid fire questions. So I hear that you can have 1 minute each to answer to my questions. We will start in this order. So we will come right now back at you, Mr. Cashton Perry from the Communities Party of Canada. I want you guys to think about the most vulnerable people in your riding. I think it's important to, first of all, how do you see the situation for you? Who are those vulnerable people and how can you help them? I want to hear you on this, starting with Mr. Perry.
Yes, absolutely. We need, the most vulnerable people, the people who are suffering from housing instability, drug addictions, all of these things stem from a social crisis where the vast majority of wealth is concentrated into very few hands, and our society runs according to this principle. We need to reverse that. We need to put the hands put the power into the hands of the working class, the vast majority of the people and their allies, and we need to build many units of publicly owned housing that's not for profit to give people a stable situation where they can, recover, fully integrate into whatever they want to pursue in their life. We need a job guarantee that will allow people to find stable employment and get rid of unemployment, which is afflicting many people, especially as the economic crisis is sharpening.
Mr. Naqvi?
Yeah, the most vulnerable people are in the community who's sleeping on Bank Street or Elgin Street, who have substance misuse disorder. It is so heart-wrenching to see those conditions. It gutted me when I saw Ontario government under Doug Ford take away the funding for consumption safe site at Somerset West Community Health Center, because they were providing service to the most vulnerable people to keep them safe. And that's why I fought and made sure that we got federal funding to support Somerset West and Centretown Community Health Centers, along with Operation Come Home, so that they can continue to provide outreach services for those very vulnerable members of our community, so that we can save their lives, but also to keep our community safe at the same time. There's more work to be done, and more work to be done in regards to building housing so that we can provide housing for those individuals in our own community.
Thank you. Just to remind that this format, you cannot be interrupted, but you can take mental notes if you want to react when it's your turn, and the choice of the order was random. I can remind it. So from the Canadian Future Party, Andrea Chabot, on the most vulnerable people in your riding.
Thank you. So personally, I just want to share that I was born in the middle of an economic crisis to 19 and 20-year-old parents. So I actually know what it's like to feel vulnerable in that situation. I think overall, what we really need is an overhaul of our tax reform and a social program overhaul. So the tax reform would be to close the loopholes for the uber rich to be able to defer tax to no end, and a social program overhaul. There's a mishmash. It's a mosaic of social programs that we have available municipally, federally, provincially, and a lot of them actually have similarly intended outcomes. And so what we need to do is take a look at all of those and streamline them, simplify them, make it easier for people to access those. And you know what? Maybe we could free up some funds for free mental health care while we're at it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosenstock from the Green Party of Canada.
Absolutely. Greens have understood for a long time that we need to take the mental health and addictions crisis extremely seriously. We are committed to modernizing the Canada Health Act so that mental health coverage can be provided under provincial health insurance plans. As well, the Liberals committed to a mental health transfer of $4.5 billion in 2021. That never came to fruition, and there's no commitments in the provincial health care agreements that the federal Liberals struck to allocate a certain percentage of funding to mental health. And it's also interesting to hear about Mr. Naqvi's concern about the toxic drug crisis, since the Parliamentary Health Committee had 18 meetings to study this issue, and Mr. Naqvi only attended 3 of them, despite not being in cabinet.
Thank you. I will now give 1 minute to Joe Larden from the New Democratic Party.
It's really important when we're talking about what we're seeing on Bank Street and Elgin Street and in Chinatown and Little Italy and all over our city, actually, that we remember that these folks are our neighbors. That they are someone's brother, someone's sister, someone's mother, someone's father. So they're not another species that we can simply gather up and institutionalize or throw into a police cruiser or a paramedic bus or a corrections facility. These are our neighbors, and society is failing them. But I want to also remind our viewers of another thing. They themselves have wonderful solutions. I want to shout out Soul Space, an organization of harm reduction workers that are between themselves seeing so much trauma and pain every day, but they are helping themselves through it, and they deserve federal government funding. I will fight for that. I want to talk about the Block Leaders program that includes current drug users to help have a new social contract in the byward market so neighbors treat each other with respect. We can get through this moment as Canadians, but we need much more federal money and respect for people on the front line.
Thank you for sharing your positions on all these matters, respecting the time, listening closely to what we have to ask you, because I think it's important to make our choice. Time flies, it's now time to get to the closing statement. But I want to put you, in this situation where people are listening to you and probably asking, why should I vote for you? So I'll leave you with that, and remember to talk to those electors of Ottawa-Centre with this minute that will be fully for you guys not to be interrupted and to share your final statements with the viewers. So as a start, I will go on the other side. So Joel Harden, you have 1 minute from the New Democratic Party.
Hi, voters of Ottawa-Centre. I want to begin by thanking you for letting me serve you for 6 years as your provincial member of parliament. What I know about politics is that it's a rough sport. And right now, it's getting even rougher, given what we're seeing in the United States. It's leading many of us into deep positions of anxiety, making us ask questions of what the strategic thing to do is in this moment right now. I would invite us to consider that the strategic thing for us to do in this moment right now is vote for what you want. To elect someone who's going to uphold the principles of this very special day. Today is Vimy Ridge Day. Today is the day we remember the generations of Canadians who paid the ultimate price for the freedom and the democratic rights that we exercise in this country. I think if those elders were to look at us right now, they would be asking us to make sure we send an MP to Parliament Hill who's going to stand up for the great local solutions we have. That is me, and I welcome your support. Thank you.
Thank you. From the Green Party of Canada, now we can hear Amanda Rosenstock.
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Rogers, for organizing this important debate. And thank you to you, the residents of Ottawa-Centre, for tuning in to hear our vision for making Ottawa-Centre a more resilient, sustainable, and fairer place to live. Greens are ready to work hard to make real progress and bring real hope on the issues that matter most to you. If you believe it's time for change and want to help build a greener future in Ottawa-Centre, join us. To lend your support, go to Rosenstock4OC.ca. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosenstock. From the Canadian Future Party, I want to give Andrea Chabot 1 minute.
Thanks. We're the new kid on the block in this election. We just formed in 2024. The Canadian Future Party is a moderate, so right in the center, not left, not right. We're interested in balanced and data-driven, evidence-driven decision-making and policy-making. This riding is not going to make or break who forms government. This is your chance to send a message to the Liberals who broke their promises, to the NDP who failed us when we needed them the most, and to the Conservatives who pretend slogans are solutions. I spent 15 years in the public service, and I know what the outdated systems and tools, the roadblocks, and the burnout can do in terms of trying to deliver the best for you. So what I'm asking you is to vote for a future that you can believe in. Vote to send someone to Ottawa who knows what it's like to deliver these things, who will fight for all Canadians, to improve our systems and to reimagine what's possible and to make democracy deliver.
Thank you. From the Liberal Party of Canada, Yasir Naqvi.
Kind strength. I was talking to a woman in Old Ottawa East, and we were talking about how Canada should face this crisis right now. And that's the message she gave me. We were talking about Canadians being confident. But not only we're strong, she reminded me that we are kind. And I told her right then and there that it really struck with me, and I will use that because it's a message to all of us, all. Canada doesn't need chaos. It needs compassion. It needs courage, kindness, and strength. And it needs leaders like Mark Carney who build, not tear down. If you believe in that Canada, the one that believed in my family and gave us the opportunity to be successful and prosper, then let's fight together. Let's fight and protect and build our country together. Vote Yasir Naqvi. Vote Liberal.
Thank you. From the Communist Party of Canada, Cashton Perry.
Canadians are increasingly understanding that to fight for Canada, as the ruling parties are all saying, is not to fight for all Canadians, but only for the interests of the ruling class of Canada. We need to put forward a working class internationalist program, one that understands that wherever the working class is fighting, that is where we need to stand. And in Canada, the vast majority of us are working class, and we need to put forward working class solutions. We need to fight for the public ownership of our industries that are threatened by Trump's tariffs, and we need to fight for a socialist Canada free from exploitation by the rich and where the vast majority of the people are in power. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for sharing your visions of politics, what should be done for this riding of Ottawa-Centre. And thank you to all of the viewers for joining us. I would